Yeah. I would like to remind every one of ourselves here to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should all participate in this Lamrim discourse, the discourse on the stages of the path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a couple of pages from the Lamrim Chemo, the Great Treatise on the State of the Path of Enlightenment, volume number 3, in the English translation of Lamrim Chemo, page 262. Those who have Kindle, I think it's chapter 20, under the subpoint somewhere, I think 2, demonstrating that reason also is not established. So allow me to read a couple of pages to give you the blessing of oral transmission. I think Geshe must have went back a little bit, as some say, and followed by explication.
你把讲的电视节目这个怎么呢？谁说的节目这个少，因为你把这个所有抗议问题，因为这个电视的老没这个讲这个那这些什么。de te bai no te rang ge te ngar rang ge mo che be ra xin ji dong me dong go jin ji lo la tu no mo che be che jin du xie je什么me ra yi da yi xie jin su ji jie jie da da le jia me xin che ni do me cho什么自己没把这些为日本的有些些为电子家庭的。路老听的这边这些几什么没为大嘛这边就是最那么俺些吧些，俺些吧些小但是是嘞，这都不能这人的看个些人，去给些别个同事要多给我的人些给弄不弄，我其他些弄弄这些弄些吧些吧，就老是吧有可能的吧，这第一些别说别说。第一别这个说吧，天的提醒，这边呢，人的话呢，小我写小我现在写小我写就个就写的了，这写因为这里头呢，这个可以提一别是工作就送别些人，我的当把里边送别当把送别这里就是开的工作的那个老电子就个等于做嘛这个有些的。同的吧，这吧小呀，这吧是为把你们以为现在电视嘛，这为同你当个写入这个就你这些，你讲的没我那看个这看个现在这的的人家所有的电视个嘛，这我给了我的现在我去电视说个就是把大家电视老是我让了嘛，这为现在这边些吧的，他们家那么这不就是些送吧的同了。到这边就是我种对吧？在那里他啥的东当我啥有我们的，就一边去龙兴那些到个把我说是个把那，统统的就一边写了些个让给我着了工作的就一边写了些，个那去我不嘛这不。第大马这把人民叫那第一个呢，马这把的大马这边这个前巴上给海浪把都给了写上了。可惜那个中央咱们些可能这些节马这边我给你写了。这个最近虽然些嘛呢，些就我但嘛一些老朋友的我的特别希望嘛一边。老你个了，甚至老的嘛，因为我那现在一年那搞个现在是个年呗，同地人地上人家开浪吧，因那些说别是个些别，我些学习嘛这边是当，这那样就说嘛，因这边地他妈大的兄弟兄弟说，这那这。就的学生当电视这边，我说那个的出门人里面的话。去别你别从电视老说不是就能我把别么着了，么这边你别这边同的都就那人个什么么着吧，然后大的学生老说么着把我的些吧我的些吧呢，些个些吧些别同路，现在这个呢么这不留的这叫。现在给了吧，当把呢，这第一个送别些这些吧，了第一个那个到我这了小玩意，第一个工作送别些这些大中国统的送别些这些大中国节，大把希望你也满意的，我是说我们能把这学生当中和人家小的嘛就把下规矩。现在那过了些个了，考中这个了，马祖巴讲马祖巴拉就往这边，现在电视当别了说不得这边，然后让不得这边当时了用处就变成当地，这个看了些，这第一边说为现在些大街当的第一些被第一考一些另外一边。 Kunzawai nani rangi tezara mendewe majola tongdami nani to ngeji ngeji tungun tongdami de ngeji tongno de dribu yeba tanga mewa jeka yule chewa kabe ngela metro ching dini khande mewe tong mendewe tisewa nze mekoso tela lawa jongwa be chere shoto ko ne taso ko be jongwa di nika dini khani xie tena ngamba dan jawa yin je dini ji jongwa kan taso dini ji jongwa kan taso ko je mana cho ngama den mo wo te tar da dini te tar dini khani te tongdeng ba dang la ma do ba yin je gu zu yin na xian la ma zhi jie xie de zhe rong de te da ma yin na qi jin de xia ba ye be nang ge jie jie jia gu zu de be xie zhe qi gu de da ge ma zhe jue xie wu na xie de ge ye ba de ling din jie jie da la de yin jie da ba xie ba de ke lang ke lang lu xie da yin na xie xie de lo ji ma zhi xie be ji dong dong ba dong zhe xie be ji dong gu zhe de wo ni de yin kan yi xie ba de yin kan yin ge ye ba yi xie xie ba da de ji这个中国吧啦，三八的大洲个头的工作都头那么康样满一点，满一那大的嘛，这么就个吧大洲个呗，同的嘛这个去嘛大洲去吧等，去呗些吧你考中给你呗，同样那大洲个呗头的嘛这个就话。有的是中吧拉的，然后给海浪吧些什么你我说海浪吧那没弄。다 난도 준종대 때리 걸사 최진 트노 뭐로다 아니 다양다 저기 뭐도 해야지 다디 다 니네 뭐디 이네 최진 뭐저 인자 최진 뭐저나 초주 줘야 뭐로 저도 다주 뭐리세 어디 해야 이거 쇼데 땡지게 뭐저 버때 반지 다양다 시최진에서 힌두 시제면은 다양다 해야 뭐로 어디 색색이 심어져be 쇼지 네버지 수거에 본데니 예베시 땡진디 데레 주비 조조바 라 양자오 쇼 땡지 데라 모저베 조조 땡지 모저베 다 모저 가가지 데려와 걸사 데스거를 걸사 최제 모저 저 최제에서 아니 예베시서야 돼 최제한테도 주야요 말아 티미디 초주 주고 말아 다지기 되고 거 말아 됐어 어디 리버 자니 이 최제 모저 기대 시에는 초주 주고 뭐 됐어 어디 됐어 어디 리버 자니 다에 시에 레시서 시스만 디템바 이노사 어디 왜 어디 거기 이 고중 시야 좀 다 최제 모저 인자 이 초주 주고 뭐 됐어 당시 동수 거야 말다 되게 말아
So Geshe read from page 262 to the bottom of page 265, and so it's under subpoint 2, demonstrating that the reason also is not established. So it starts with Chandrakirti's clear words passage there. As Geshe started to give his explication, so one of the things that we have talked about in a debate between Baba Viveka and Chandrakirti, right? They represent different schools of thought. That's my contexting, right? Footnote first. So one of the critical issues that has been raised is that they really do not have a common subject or a topic to debate about. We don't have a common ground or a subject or a topic to really talk about or debate about. Okay? Because a common topic or subject is not established, so therefore the implications from that is that we really don't have what is called a perfect reasoning, 大样的. A perfect reasoning ought involve these elements. We have to have a subject, Tibetan called Chöjen. we have to have a predicate, which is chokje. We have to have a reason, da. So we have a subject, predicate, and a reason. When we don't have a common topic or a subject to begin with, right, then really there cannot be a common predicate to be talked about or established. So then there cannot be a reason that can establish, right, that subject as the predicate. So in that sense, Chandrakirti is basically telling Baba Viveka that we really don't have a perfect reasoning syllogism here, because in the beginning, we don't have a common topic or a subject, to debate about,
어디지 거기서 실수만 뒤담아 있는 특색이 들어야 랑기 들어가 랑고 주위에서 랑신이 동무던 게 고아니 길로서 주위 최신 주지 저 매베 랑기 따 최지 소이제제 등 날려 매베 최니라 도베 초서 주시 매와가 시르거데 예베 시르셰베 땡지장 뒤인지 로라 티노디 마르베 티노디 주베 주시기 체마메베 다 마르바 유제 다 마르바 유주 남가시바시노 스자 최제트나 메다 에니 최제 메디 르자르자 최제 메다 에니 티 카사 정지 다这个嘛是中学的人是da di karsa ngarsheba shi charo der tsixele da di yongsa de da di zowa ga tsixele yongoro wa der tsixele de da benen de da yinde kongi shige nyebe tonde ne tokyo de rani khela bayeno shedar shena nong jeje no jebar shewa yulo soba ni yeba khona yinde de da di shebe sungbe shero 거 di shebe shige sungba de ne ti shede pena nyangal de ba 냥을 대바니 쇼 시쇼시노 시 초신지 그비 주신데라시 들치기 땡지기 돈을 되와 강이 디시비 군소디 되게 송비 셔름 원데 돈 담아 송비 셔 걔도 군소디는 돈 땡지기 돈 맞아 버니도 셔당 돈 담아 맞아 봐돈 담아 주바 셔도 주바 셔 니 맞아 셔 땡지 맞아 돈이 당 예외 돈이도 신디 좀 매봐 이노 거기 되더는데 랑 디디 랑이게 추인디 땡스 맞아 봐 켈랑 봐 디셔 뭐부 추 땡스 수고비 제수 바바 탐지 라 땡스 라서 봐 랑라 맞아 비시 주바시와 탐지 넘버 지바 조로 해 송바 디 돈라 다 식세나 디레지 있어요. 식세나 디레 달로볼리니지 데바 디레지 먹고요. 와. 다디 돈들이야 가지기 다디야요. 공주니 해가지고 있어요. 와. 예수만데라 간지 따들이야 아니 최제 마르베 쫑디게디 해로. 어디 돈다 디 나와서들 식세 간지 해거스나 This daughter is doing the Nares, that there was in the Dilia 6 8 and Geshe Johnny. Son of Tonta was young when you might then join be shared. And the long hand of shit, talk about so the Govala. Tondon join be shared here, gonna run Madola. Gundo the join be shared here, gonna Chigudi ngoma motobo ti ta motobar menjona tini ji gon motobar la ta motobe chaba range khela ba de ge she sella khaji ne yuwa zang shi ko na ri ji motobe goba ino she sero de su jin shi ba ni se ji gomba te mai jing लोगों ते तेदा दे शेवा मई पा लोग निगा ला 신주로 뭐 이노스 다 뒤 책세 디 마시 다 책세들이야 이 책세 제노 들 공발레니 이 디레시 중앙인 비죠 저 믹스 돈도 봐서면 돼 중앙인 비죠 롱현도 세 다죠와 어디 다딜레니 티카르도 돈도나 이 카르사 이 ngal 마트 이 군조는 셔는 마트 세네 이 어딘데스 링디가 들에 라고 그래서 왔다. 어디 라브레스니 인다에 또 고마 채워서 티 마레스. 그래서 나와타 고마 첼루디 그래서 당기에 시지 마르베 베르는 티니 에디 마주이시베다 추시시베 조는 시타티 추마주이시바니 바델야 링디에스는 마주이시베니 바다 이니 나와타 버시니 추시니 바스 조고라 어디 리바티탄 셰어바다질 단다 돈돔다인다 디레시니 자라마레스 코니니 단다 저바 용단도 나와타 때 식세 해야데 뭐 링데 공바 딘데 랑니 셰어마리 링데 공바 테 마레스 고서
All of that again, because such is a rowa, then the bar and such them mind and because a Juma in Bitch, Lunga, that did Geshe D and Dawad of Bitch, Culture, a Loban Langdon Chigger, and turn Tamba Drobaina, Chiran Drumas and Gal Drumas, the Loban language of Crown Drumas. Crown Drugo, turn the bar.
La
turn the Crown, what with me.
지도는 동답데 링데라 동답데 주마로 링데 코노 로리야 뎀버트바 동답바 모로 켈레 거라
알로 이거 두고 알로 두고 말했어 아니 가서 군접도 예매이나
군도 딘다 ngoma 디고응시고 ngoma 거이메와
알로
이는 돈돈도 조이비시고데는 랑마로 군도도 조이비시고는 시고 ngoma 모로 쓰기도 다디 다다티르다 링딩이 따고야 돼 제시자 가지고 자야 된다
가지야 너 제시디게 then the Madus and Alu Dumas, the Kunjo the Madusana, Sulu.
군도 마토세나 데스고르 커사 군도 주바이나 초론을 못 군도 주바이나 쓰고르다 뭐뭐 동어터버 헬랭거라 군도 주바 헬랭거 무서 동어터버 헬랭거라 시다 군도 인생은 초론 동어로 와서 동어터버는 갈 마토 있어 또 데시자디네 링딩 삼지 딩마테 마레스 다터 딘데 링딩리아 아니 가바시오 마레시고
So Geshe explanation pertains to the passage you find at the bottom of page 262 to page 263. So this is under subpoint demonstrating that the reason also is not established. So this whole debate about where Chandrakirti tells Baba Viveka that we really don't have a common ground or a topic or a subject, right? So therefore, really we don't have what you try to claim as perfect syllogistic reasoning or tagyanda. When you don't have a common ground, a subject, then we don't have a common predicate to talk about, and then we don't have a common reason. Not common reason. We don't have a reason. That's acceptable to both. So this whole thing is tied up with the whole notion of what is called autonomous syllogistic reasoning, in Tibet, right? That the Baba Viveka accept autonomous syllogistic reasoning, So because that assumes that things must exist intrinsically, right? That's the issue where one believes in the intrinsic nature of things, the other refutes it. So we don't have a common ground here, right? Just to refresh your mind. And so where's all these things we can find is actually in Chandrakirti's work called Clear Words, 6L. And right on the top of page 263, a big passage has been cited there, as you can see. And so Chandrakirti kind of lays out the Baba Viveka's viewpoint, and then he, critiques it. So what we find that is, as you can see, the kind of a syllogism presented there, more towards the bottom of the page. This is like based upon Baba Viveka's blaze of reasons, okay, which represents the Savatantaka's position. Earth element, right? There are many elements. The earth is an element. Is not ultimately of the nature of solidity because it is an element, for example, like wind. So that is kind of syllogistic reasoning presented. Okay, and so some, who claim to be the followers of the Chandrakirti, they started to, interpret, this very syllogistic reasoning, but they got the interpretation wrong. Okay, that's the thesis. Geshe is trying to explain here. Yeah. So the way they said, actually they claim to understand the Chandrakirti's mindset on this, but they got it wrong. So what they said is, what that syllogistic reasoning is all about, it says, Earth is not ultimately of the nature of solidity because it's an element like wind. Yeah. So Earth does not exist, how should I say, ultimately, even for Baba Vivekas, okay, for Baba Vivekas, does not believe in ultimate existence, okay. So they said for Baba Viveka, if you mean that Earth does, how to say, does exist ultimately, then that does not even acceptable to the Baba Vivekas because he does not accept ultimate existence. Are you with me? But if this whole thing is about that Earth does not exist conventionally, okay, then for the essentialists who believe in the intrinsic nature of things, for them things must exist intrinsically, right? Then it would not be acceptable to them because things have to exist for the essentialists, but exist intrinsically. Okay. So that's how they thought. This is what Chandrakirti means. His understanding of Baba Viveka's syllogistic reasoning. But here again they said, no, that's not what the Chandrakirti means. What really Chandrakirti, the way he is critiquing Baba Viveka's position is based upon, as we talked about this early on the notion of Trilshe and Matuvesheba, based upon what we call the mistaken perception or non-mistaken or unmistaken perception, isn't it? For Baba Viveka, things must exist intrinsically, okay? And so the perception of things as being intrinsically existent is a non-mistaken, unmistaken perception for Baba Viveka. Are you with me? But for Chandrakirti, it is a mistaken perception. It cannot be, see that? So based upon such a fundamental difference in terms of mistaken or unmistaken perceptions, and also related to that is the valid cognition, as we talked about before. So Chandrakirti is critiquing the autonomous syllogistic reasoning, right, presented by Baba Viveka. He said that kind of syllogistic reasoning is not acceptable. We really don't have a common topic or the subject to really debate about. Okay? So Chandrakirti's critique is based upon the notion of the mistaken or unmistaken perception, not so much on the notion of ultimate existence or the conventional existence, in this particular context. Okay.
in the 2 years about the Madrid Shemaro, Tigal goes in Ta to send Langer, Tiga Jawar, Ta Shevata Toguba, go Shevata, Teria, any reason she need show Maris, daughter Verda. And the social more of Gizen Carson, Trigi the Madrid in Gigorwa, Tiki do Shusha Motorwa, Shusha was the Ta to so till Charmadu. Then join with the chicken and say, oh, did tell you go to shame Maris.
So, in a nutshell, what is all about is that Chandrakirti's critique of Baba Viveka's autonomous syllogistic reasoning, is really based upon the whole, that correct and incorrect perception or mistaken and unmistaken perceptions, not based upon this kind of a syllogistic reasoning presented in the Blaze of Reasons by Baba Viveka. The syllogism in that is Earth is not ultimately of the nature of solidity because it is an element like wind, right? Chandrakirti is really not even talking about that. Right? What he says is that when we say we don't have common ground, right, according to Baba Viveka, whatever subject he doesn't qualify it. He just presents it as if, it's taken for granted. But that topic, visible form, for example, for him, it must exist intrinsically, and the perception of the intrinsic existence of visible form is unmistaken perception for Baba Viveka, correct perception. Are you with me? For Chandrakirti, wait. There is no intrinsic existence, and you claim it to be like unmistaken perception of the thing. He said, no, that is a mistaken perception. So based upon, right, the mistaken, unmistaken perceptions, Chandrakirti is critiquing the Baba Viveka's, autonomous syllogistic reasoning. Said, you know what, right in the beginning, we have this big disagreement. We don't have a common ground, right? You accept intrinsic existence, we don't accept intrinsic existence. So, there cannot be a topic or a subject that is intrinsically existent, it has to exist intrinsically, it doesn't have to exist, right? So if it exists intrinsically, if it were to, right, hypothetically speaking, then Chandrakirti got it wrong, isn't it? If it, but if it doesn't exist intrinsically, then Baba Viveka got it wrong, isn't it? So there isn't a common ground. It has to be either or. Things exist intrinsically, or they don't exist intrinsically. There is no fidgeting and, can we have, some kind of a common ground? They don't. Okay.
Well, 다른 거대지 특색 공부 가르치는 시간에는 강의지 세계시에 동전이 니런이 계랑보이네 예승비 세계시와 능가시비 쇼시 모두 베스 모두 베 수당真是就送把印的事现在到세계 송세야 돼 너무지 그게 가서 무슨 때로 달 미제때 유비시세야 될 애니 쇼신 조금도 모두 시베니 쇼신 조금도 라로 그래서 디 모두 인자 쇼신 모두 푸네 근데 내가 쇼신 모두 인자 애는 다한다 조금도 쓰니요 쇼신 모두 빠이 모두 시베니 동다 트이 인게 와신 어딜 자르 모두 질 이 단다 도기 뭐들 잘 말이시거다.
So whole Chandrakirti's critique is is with reference to autonomous syllogistic reasoning Baba Viveka presents, and that syllogism, in a nutshell, says visible form. That's the subject, right? Topic is not produced from itself. There is no self-production. That's a predicate. Why? Because it exists. Okay, that's the reason. So Chandrakirti says, you know what? When you say visible form, okay, and you really take it for granted that there is such thing as intrinsically existent visible form, okay, and you assume that the perception of such intrinsically existent visible form is unmistaken perception, correct perception, okay, but that isn't a unmistaken perception. So we don't have a common ground where you claim to be unmistaken. For us, it is a mistaken perception. There is no intrinsic reality per se. So right from the beginning, when we don't have a common ground or a subject to talk about, right, to start a conversation and debate, so everything else falls apart. So we cannot have a predicate here in the syllogism. We cannot have a reasoning, to establish the, that subject as the predicate,
어제다 대마다의 형도 승부 소시대던 데려와셔도 다다이 최제 마저버리시 마저바 시세던 더 최제 마저 파 타좀 최대잖아 양조리아 다주문도 실라워와 시다 디참데 다 청야데 최제 마저 시세던 디 대마다의 형다의 형 스세 형도 송샤스 그들 자고레스 대도고 바디 카도 요마 저와도 요마와 어디서 어딜 자고레스 이제 그래서 다다디 스세 송야디게 데 다모도 이제디 카도 송도서 최제 마저 송베 대마다의 송샤스 시다 최제 마저 그들 자주레스 송베 대다는 늘这学见的电视嘛，这个我说的学见的电视，这个我说的这去嘛就赢了没到啊，去边你们从电视来说吧，说那我嘛为没着了，没这边西边你们说呢，说呢，让给前面没这边。让前面民主呗，让一大的学见了说吧，毛着吧，可是，我的写吧，你写给写吧，先写通通是，我这写着的， karsa dena der gördü çöjen da tenzi drebe ngusum da çöjen da ta ninga she da çöjen maju yibi shibe yibi çöjen mebe na shinge in tenzi maju shibe çöjen yomarwa da lingde lu shena yomarwa o cheta tin gozum she de tenzi tugun la res yo 당주 일라서 뭐 맞아봐 운세바 달세데 다른 년다 애니 최저 조금도 세네 애니 마주시바 치질도 시도 타제버세서 가사라와 어디 나신 있으라고 그랬어 요 뭐세바 예바 시베니 시게 예바시 돈노스 시게 예스도 저는 가마 해사 최저 뭐로 해사라와 어디래 된다 거는 맞아봐 줘봐 링딘 제게 시다케 켈랑부터 많이 되들 뒤에 송배시로 해와라 대인이고는 따와제와 세와이 노사 다 된다요 거는 뭐저번 줘봐 링딘지 시들 켈랑도 많이 사 링딘 코너 켈랑도 가려서나 아니 또 많이 뒤들 뒤시베 송배시로 해베 발라 대인이고는 따와제와 세와이 노스 뒤시 따디 데레 당기 세대야 도금발 송도 산통다버 지원고 뭐인지 이 가서 용화이 베지 롱생노 시야고디 가서 데바리 가서 렌데 데바딘서 간지 데바인데 네 뒤시 무슨 베셔스데 뒤시 베네 군소 데바 송리 통다바 데바 송리 시야 링딩 단데 도금바딘 예사르와 kilonata matida tiye be songbe shiri shewala denyi go taban zewa sewa inos tiye tida tiye be songba be shiri shewa denyi go taban zewa sewa inos 제 denyi sene ta tangi de kanji kanta ja maju yi be shidonda 추시 yi 이동에는 kuzo denba shi maju yi be ni tonda wa shiro ro 어디서 세와 이노 티 돈이 tiye be kuzo do songbe shiri 다슨 거담 통도도 숨베시 다슨 것이 딱바시바 네 이마인데 말 총아 켈랑바다 최진 된도 강기장 최진 된주 강기 쳐바데 마지바 샤고지 신도 거치고 가능직라 마저바 조에 조바 데바 신디 텐지당 벨서베 드데비 rakpa tindrewe ene takshiwa la yonsu zo vendita chuwa kala si tena tiyi shikwa sungpe shir shebe ta ki tong tiyi shikwa kanyin shi dewa mimbi kunzo ba yin na ne rangi teta mindawe ene rangla maro la tong da ba yin na nye ki tong dung jibu yuwa tang meba nika yuli kiawa 가베 녀를 문조진 대니 강대 매베 돈디 돈은 민대베스 티서원 제무고소 데라 요한이 베시 시고 다스 거베 요한디 니 강야 만시 되는 가마다 인지 대니지 요한 강다 대니지 요한 강 다스 거지 mana chonga de mago was ne dimja deni ji juan ga ta del che ko na ta zu ge ben juan di deni kha yi she chen nga ma den da yin ji deni na ga ri ko yin se chena ine ta da ma ju shi be ni dong da chi yi do se di ri ba chi ba sha ora denyi kan tasu ko se da ngama den da yin ji se di che denyi ji jong tasu ko ji denyi jong kan tasu ko denyi ne kunzo jong tasu ko ye tondong jong tasu ko ye se de ko ma re shi de ma go de la we na ene karsa di 최고 인대와 하모 re se da di kaza lingdian ji de ene ke ba she mo se wa di se wa 딱주를 용수조 그래서 라파 데데 딱주에서 나타 수인데와 성게 지대로와 용수조 밴드데 트바 칼라시스 어디 링데제에 딘데지리아 종파지와 수수분야 디레게 딱주네 켈링 말아서 밴드데 셴보라와스 现在 당연히 추마주 될 시간을 이게 뒤집어 군소성 동동성서 어딘데 라고 말이지. 뒤거는 다스 파고나 라이데 딜라고 왔다. 다 파고나 이 군소성 도 TV나 파고야 다 용도 수로로 와. 답변은 링데기 예외시에서 군소도 예외시에서 동도 예외시에서 군소도 예외는 저는 두고 동도 갈 두고 말시. 뭐말래 잡다 파로고도 와. tuklavina rwa o tiswarta
다디긴 독도를 쉬는 거게
도도도 신다 tiswar
톨친스키 스테스코베서
라
스테스코베서 제 톨친스키
데 마타고 히도 와주다 시에카고도 다 셰다 데 tiswar 돈다 렉스드는 이네 간제 간다 잡아다 이네 당기딜 나와 시야 돼 tin데 당 카지디 저와자 나기 시베이나 인데 딱주레도 그래서 다파고는 자는 벤 뉴그시 된데 비스고나 인데 군소데 된데 비스고요 통통데 비스스 라나 인 당기파라야 디직바래요 다와타 발시고다
알로
저 링델 본 다와타 디제 티베이나
알로
티베이나 다 링델스 다와타 발인 뉴그시 데메 된데 비스스 군소 된데 비스스 통통데 비스스 스체와시나 알로 파지와시야 데 수소도로 텔라 딱주스가
알로
딱주스가 어디 제가 등기 드레시 시에는 나와서 시야 데 딱주레도 요 링데시야 데 그거 좀실라나 그런 소고도 어디 가지디야 시 가지 인시에서 어디 해다는 드면도 현나데 다 고준 제가 가져서 이게 단단 거거든요 취시 예비도 마주이도 세 어디 잔네 디 르중데 따들라 취시 땅예와 시게데 마주이와 소잔 어디 르중 자주레스 다 도도 숙대 지로들에
마주이 셰베기 녀베이나 와게
그래
마주이 셰베 녀베는 된 담벌 주고 그랬어
통해서 버텨
된 담벌 주고 그랬어 단다디로 올로 랭데잖아
아제제
취베 셰베 녀베
링데제도 통다 버텨고
말말 건다
나와 잡아도 거라
알로 나와 잡아야 디까지 마주이 셰베 녀베이나 된 담벌 주고 그랬어 다된 담 되고 말 와게
어디
딱 취셰게 녀베 되는이나 디 군접도 주고 그랬어 디 나와 잡을 두쳐 와
어제 다
내가 가정만 양 취셰를 말 디스코
되지고 다 링데를 켈라 난가셔 걸고 군접 인세야 되다 마주이 히베 니바 요샤요로 링데코는 난가샤다래
알라레레 오레
미소 군접 디요세
취셰게
마주이 니바 인세나 요샤로 다 마주이 니바 취이 니바니 요샤거로
그래
군접 디요세 거로
오레
링데 그냥 미소 군접 디요세 거라 미소 인다 시제 가리는 군접 디요세 취이 니바 마주이 히베 요세 마주이 히베 니바 디스거로
알라레레
제가 다 다다면서 마주이 히베 니도 있는 이제 통다바인 거래시
그래서 취셰게 녀베
이메 있는 군접 샤도 그래스라
그래서 저도 가라 아니 가르치는 거 렌데잖아 군저도 차면 가르치는 거
취이 니바 있는 데스거다 가르사 또 마주이 히베 동 디지도 디스 군접 데려와 가르사
취셰게 녀베이나
마주이 집에 니바 있나 통다바 샤도리 통다바 샤이는 링데라니게 미소 군접 디요스가 되게 계속
알로 군저스키 알로 다 그래서 취셰게 녀베이나 아니
다 취이 니바 있는 링데가 샤소고 말아 마주이 집에 니바 샤도고 말아 어디서
알로 아멘 Thanks for your patience. As Geshe said, this is such a difficult topic even for him to explain, right? Because I just need a gist and clear cut, right? Otherwise, things get dispersed. I get part of it, then I don't know which the other part, right? It got lost in the big picture. So it's a very difficult topic. So anyway, so through clarification, the bottom line is this. So Chandrakirti, as we know, critiques Baba Viveka's autonomous syllogistic reasoning. And the critique is really based upon the notions of mistaken or unmistaken perceptions or non-mistaken perceptions, right? It is really, the critique is not so much based upon whether really things exist ultimately or conventionally. I mean, that's how some of the followers of Chandrakirti thought. That's what the Chandrakirti meant, So they try to kind of speak for Chandrakirti, but they goofed on this one. So that's not what Chandrakirti is talking about. And then they make reference to Baba Viveka's, this other syllogism in the Blaze of Reasons, Baba Viveka's work, where it says, Earth is not ultimately in the nature of solidity because, it is an element just like wind. Chandagiri is really not even referring to that. It's just leave it alone, so that's the followers who claim to be the Chandagiris, they understood they got it wrong, and so a case that has to be clarified. That's what we did. Okay. So now coming back to Chandagiri's critique of Baba Viveka's autonomous syllogistic reasoning, where one of the things we talked about is right in the beginning, Chandagiri tells Baba Viveka, you and I don't have a common topic or a subject to debate about. Okay. Because a common subject has to be established by valid cognition, right, perception. Okay. And so based upon our notions of mistaken, unmistaken perceptions, I'm critiquing you that we don't have a common subject. Because we don't have a common subject, so then we cannot talk about the rest of your perfect syllogistic reasoning, Takyanda, because everything else falls apart. There is no predicate that's acceptable. There is no perfect reasoning. Okay? And so the thing, I think the crux of the matter is this. When Baba Viveka accepts that visible forms and names, these things exist conventionally. Okay, that's Baba Viveka accept, right? These things exist conventionally. Okay. So now Chandagiri tells him, okay, if that's what you bring as your topic or a subject, okay, let me ask you this. So what kind of a perception established them to exist conventionally, right? Is it a mistaken perception or unmistaken perception, isn't it? If you claim that it is established by unmistaken perception, then for us it must exist ultimately or intrinsically, and that's not acceptable, right? That means you claim it to exist conventionally, but if you say it is established by unmistaken perception, then that assumes that it exists, it should exist intrinsically, and that's not the case. It's not acceptable to us, isn't it? But if you say that, which they wouldn't say, because Baba Viveka says these are established by unmistaken perceptions, but then he claims them to exist conventionally. So Chandagiri is raising issue here, that if it's established by unmistaken perception, then this must exist intrinsically. You cannot claim them to exist conventionally, intrinsically, but that is not acceptable to us, right? Because Chandagiri refutes intrinsic existence, isn't it? But if you say, which Baba Viveka will not say, that it is established by a mistaken perception, then it will not exist intrinsically just the way you claim to be. So then you lose there. So therefore, based upon mistaken and unmistaken perception, which is related to the valid cognitions, you and I don't have a common ground, common topic, right, at the beginning to talk about. So using the same, reasons, so Chandagiri critiques that. Therefore, we can also say that there is no reason that is acceptable to both of us, based upon mistaken and unmistaken perception. Just like we talked about this with regard to the subject, we can apply the same critique of the notion to the reason, because there is no commonly established reason for you and me, based upon mistaken and unmistaken perceptions. Now, I hope it's a little better, because that's the gist of what it is among so many things. Yeah. And as Geshe proceeds, maybe things will get even clearer. If not, after the teaching, we yield, and you can ask for clarification.
Ini te karsa de
Mà language
ta lingdian pa kwe kas lingdian kwe ne lingdian su jwa ji ne ini chong rang xiu zhe yu karsa den de da su go ye be rang xiu mo zhe den de da su go yes rang xiu zhe den de da su go ne chong zhu mar was ku mar ba rang xiu mo zhe den de da su go ne lingdian zhu mar ba o di so da ge su pa la ya de su la ni go to so da da zhu su go da zhu su go ra ge de den go ra o zhu su go.
So then, what follow is, this is relating to what some of the who claim to be the followers of the Chandagirdi, they really thought they understood the Chandagirdi, and so they are kind of giving an interpretation for Chandagirdi, right, with regard to his critique about, with regard to Baba Viveka's position in the place of reasons, okay? So that pertains to asking almost like when you put a syllogism, right, there is a subject, predicate, and reason, then that reason, you see, does the reason exist ultimately or conventionally, you know? But that's not where the Chandagirdi really, that's not Chandagirdi saying, because if Chandagirdi were to say that, then the Baba Viveka can say the same thing back to him, you know, if the parallel kind of reasoning, you know, and that doesn't work. For example, as Geshe explained, let's say the syllogism is a sprout or seedling, right? What is it? A sprout or seedling does not exist truly because it's dependent arising. Right now you see the syllogism, a sprout is the subject topic, does not exist truly, is the predicate. The reason is it's dependent arising. Okay? So if Chandagirdi were to, hypothetically speaking, ask Baba Viveka, when you say dependent arising, do you mean ultimately or conventionally? Okay? Then the Baba Viveka say the same thing to you. You know, I'll ask you too. I'll say, when you use the same reasoning, you know, do you mean dependent arising in the sense of what we call ultimate existence, right? Intrinsic existence. If you do, well, that's not acceptable to you, because you the Chandagirdi, refutes intrinsic reality, isn't it? And but if you say it does not, exist intrinsically, that does not work for us, because we believe things should exist intrinsically, you know. So in that sense, the Baba Viveka can use the same logic to get back at the Chandagirdi. So that doesn't work. So that is not the interpretation or the critique of the Chandagirdi. So the followers of the Chandagirdi, some of them, they goofed on that one, you know.
Imbala goni denyi kan shi tebati tinyi kan nyeba yin shi iwa tang ne ju do go bala samba sha de sita denyi kan shi de zana de res warda 추시 이베스고리 마주 이베스고리 와 디니 kan 치고리 뭐 저 어쩌다 또 치고 디니 저 차니 에네 치단 텔 치브레스 रेड वगैरह शिगो देदा मोटो जुइशो उन सदाई मा लिंगदेन जे ये ता दिनी ये ताकबा शेबा दी खेलां लु सदाई ये खेलां लु से दाट व पापु नि खेलता लिंगदेन खेलां को गरवा ता लिंगदेन खेलां दे जन इन ता दे करे मोटो शिबे नि खेलें गरा रवा सुजे मोटो शिबे ये खेलें गरवा 수지 모두 시바 켈랭 거와 다데 모지 시베지바 켈랭 거와 어디 디 고등시에서 거와 그래서 동담바데 치베 시베지바 군조도 이발로 고는서 어디다 자기게 마이 수진다고 다가랑 치베 시베지바이나 군조 모지 시베지는 동담 어텔 진 당기텔 다 조금도 세야 돼
This is working. Tribe seven years in a queen's of the Rock, Maru 7 years, and them so the Pandawara was somewhere. In Google,
the English order. Tanda Nido isn't the water. Maudri 7 years, don't you go with Shago the thing is water. Lindeco and Nange Carson, Muso good of easy, young Maudri 7 years, Nange Shago, so I tell to
알아 다우터 보이는 마류 쉐빈이에 동이 마시요 말이야.
어디-
근접 쳐간 걸 추베 쉐빈이
어쩌지거라.
추바드 가봐서 그래.
추바됐다 됐으고 추베 시바서 너희를 추바샤고.
알아 남기로 추는 거. 알아 템벌 나자 되면서 나왔어. So Chandrakirti's critique of Baba Viveka is based upon, as we said, the notions of mistaken or unmistaken perceptions. And Baba Viveka claims that visible forms and names, all of those things exist conventionally, but at the same time he said these are found by unmistaken perceptions. So that's the contradiction there, isn't it? Yeah, this exists conventionally, but they said these are established by unmistaken cognition or perception. Okay? So Chandak is asking the question, I'm asking you, when you say visible forms exist, do you mean that these visible forms, right, exist conventionally? Are those perceptions mistaken or unmistaken? Okay? And if you say unmistaken, then they have to be emptiness. For example, Chandrakirti, right? The only thing that is found to, by unmistaken perception or valid cognition is the emptiness for Chandrakirti. Everything else, all the conventional phenomena are established or found by mistaken perceptions. Mistaken in what sense? Things appear to them as intrinsically existent, but they don't exist that way. It's mistaken in that sense, isn't it? Yeah. So Chandrakirti is very clear with, which says, yes, there is unmistaken perception. It establishes emptiness. That's the only thing. And there are mistaken perceptions. They deal with conventionality, because conventionality is, appears to the perception as intrinsically existent, but they don't. That's how we say it. Now I'm asking you, Baba Viveka, where do you stand? Tell us, right? You said that visible forms exist conventionally, which is fine. So now, are those perceptions of visible forms mistaken or unmistaken? But according to Baba Viveka, those are unmistaken, isn't it? So if it's a mistaken, it has to be empty. It's going to be conventional, right, according to Chandrakirti. So this is the big difference, right, fundamental difference in terms of their standpoint on the perception that's mistaken or unmistaken.
다수 그 돈 뭐주어도 취배시바 이 가는 게 니베 돈면은 다수 그 돈도 뭐주어 줘 유저 총발라 디랑 해랑 해 송바 인제 무엇을 해랑 받네 메노스 디버다기 더무들이선 최진샤 그뭐 딸이 미세 줘도요 말와
네.
셰더디 해랑시도 그런 돈 해랑 뭐 그런 다대 머리지바 인시들 라요 말이시고 최진데 머리지바 라면 다 머리지바 라요 말와 요버지는 돈다 디건 이제 송사이니 고성셰레시고
So of course that big debate between Chandrakirti and Baba Viveka pertains to the subject or the topic. We don't have a common subject or ground, okay? Because where you claim the subject to be established by unmistaken perception, where we differ. So therefore, we don't have a common subject. Of course, Baba Viveka, has not explicitly stated that reason, which is a part of a syllogistic reasoning, is also established by unmistaken perception. But the implication is that if the subject is established by unmistaken perception, then your reason better be established by the same perception. Although you didn't say it, I know you didn't say it, but it's implicated,
대단한 가서 런지 미지가네 대서서 대시 우부치 댄스스고 능시 우부치 미기시 간에 송소 세다단디 다마르고 그래서 우부치서 라위자와 티 로본 링든지 니네 런그거베 따뜻다 가지는 무슨 마주에 무슨 땅 가지는 타두베 주지 무슨 세말라 무슨 마주올라 시 매장 로본디 팅고바 이노세다 링든지게 가지 데레스다 추가리이나 아니 가지는 무슨 마주에 무슨 땅 무슨 도레세워와 가지는 타두비 주시 무슨 마주올라 시 매장 근데 탈도는 무슨 또 그래서 저 말해 가지고
네.
어디 가서 해오라 세면로 세면 로본 되게 아니 로본 디 디고바 이노세다 마주 히베니 와스다 고워라다 링데세는 가 야면은 무슨 세마랑 그런 무슨 얘기를 야면은 탈도그 제와 얘기나 디 따도야 탈도인데 무슨 또 야다마다 무슨 또 세죠 말해
디 랭덴 다오라 보니까 켈링이 죠.
단다 나다 또 거야 디 켈링 그러와 마주 됐다 무슨 또야 켈링 거지 마주 켈링
알 트리 마주 세다.
링데 그 탈도네 야 마주 시와 또 거야 실 키운 거라
알레.
호텔 텔도 거레스 어디다
세저 다디 kalnyanga kalcha 게.
this word karsa 투모도 응게 이제 세다다 최지 다토문도 세야 돼. 어디 이제 들어왔다. 나도 모두 희빈 유도 세야 돼. 돈이 왜 사실 말아.
몰라래.
그래서 근데 가시 무슨 세명 무슨 모두 무슨 또 그래스. 가시 무슨 세마코나 무슨 뭐다. 탈뚝도 모두 무슨 세말 또 그래스라로.
뭐라.
저 모두 무슨 세마 요마로. 다다 군솔 미 모두 무슨 세마 세도 요마로.
알레.
요마로.
다오타 베전 모두.
어디서
알레. 무슨 세마이나 게 취재 미켜고 그러.
다 데르다 무슨 세마이나 세나 다 데르다.
다오타 봐.
쇼다 데르 쇼다 돈이 많이 배.
무슨 세마이나.
무슨 세마이나
돈이 많이 가서 그대로게.
다 돈이 많이 배 유진 이나 다 페이지 취임 시작하다 가지.
알레. 돈이 또 무슨 세마 피베지기 무슨 세마인 취재 미켜고. 그러. 세다는 무슨 세마 탈도네 모두 쉐베 두고 세대 두야요 말스 가서는.
어디 있어?
Always good to double, triple check it so that I understand. So Baba Viveka, of course, asserts that there are phenomena or objects which are perceived by what we call ngunsum, direct perceptions or non-conceptual perceptions. And he also believes in the unmistaken, non-conceptual perceptions or direct perceptions. So he said there are things that can be established by non-conceptual direct perceptions. But in the ultimate sense, even though you use inference and logic and inferential, but ultimately at the end of the game, everything has to be established by unmistaken, direct perception. That's what Baba Viveka says. But then Chandrakirti says, well, you got a problem here. Yeah? In the notion of your unmistaken perceptions, isn't it? According to Chandrakirti, the only unmistaken perception is that of the perception of emptiness. The rest of the perceptions of the conventional phenomena are mistaken perceptions, isn't it? Yeah. So you really, at the end of the game, there is no unmistaken perceptions for you because all of those things are mistaken perceptions, dealing with. So that's another issue, kind of a related issue Chandrakirti races with Baba Viveka. So that's on top, relating to the page top of 266, the kind of the last page, right? Yeah. Of that chapter. Yeah.
Gobainen de nga changbatar oma bainen shoje kelangba mebe she rangi tsin yutube ton kelangba meribe dubshi de kede ngosun la so be sheso chane rangzen jebe tsema meba suma nanji so lobon lingde jeje cho zamba la dube sheros o dim da khasa gobainen de 대야 nga changba da oma baina shoke kelama mebe shirse kare de oma baina kanji sho hin da taji jawaso ke len rig mare siwa da kanji oma baina lab demba mis lab ene henje de kelama baina gewa chagoro henje na ene karza henje na rang sen yu chodu woro che da disiwa shoye kelama mebe shiro se de de shoye kelama mirik ba 다 링딩게 현재 켈링고로
링딩 신지 켈링
저 지나서 엄마베네 데메 마인데 데메 켈링게네 현재 켈링 좀 말이지
알아노서
어디지 거리
알아 신의 게 몰라 알다가 이제 데르와게 태시 깨와데 켈링 바이는 엄마베 이거 말어
어디지 거리 디카르다 리게 지분도 되지로 그래서 로무디 그래서 에네 랑신이 좋아히베 엄마가 민족가 냥 좀 메데스 게네 제네 게로 제바디가 미리자 대단 가서 영어 많이 레도 말을라와.
No, so.
영어는 이제 영어 재미있는 거서 송으로.
Lare.
뒤는 찍니 위해서나 그 영어 많이 쳐 말아.
그 자와
뒤는 이거 엄마 배는 데 연동 켈링에 가데 켈링 요 타이 저와 켈링이도 요 말레스. 이는 타이 거루 저와 켈랑 맞담지 양고 엄마 많이 차도.
랭게지 쓴 거를.
랭게지 거. 어디서 랭게지 몰라야 돼요. 어디서.
다 다시 집에 들어가 그냥 가서 달에 제와 셴에 제와 니가 규메를 제와. So Chandrakirti kind of reminds, or so to speak, maybe that's a better word, Baba Viveka, that if you claim to be middle way proponents or the Madhyamikins, then you really cannot accept, what is called the 4 types of production: production from self, production from others, production from both, production without cost, costlessly, isn't it? If you claim yourself to be Madhyamikins, you cannot, because Madhyamikins don't accept true existence. Okay? But the issue is that Baba Viveka accepts production from others, Shinje. Okay? And so then Baba Viveka, somewhere as Geshe from his memory recalls what is stated in Lekshe Nyingbo, Essence of Eloquent Explanation, where Baba Viveka, says, yeah, in general sense, yes. If you are Madhyamikins, you should not accept, any of the 4 types of production. But should you accept one of them somewhere, still you could be a Madhyamikin, It's not that of a big deal, so to speak. And then he gives the example of how, for example, a fully ordained monk has, I think, as many as 253 vows to keep. If a monk breaks some, the monk is supposed to keep all the vows intact. Well, the monk could break some vows, but that doesn't mean he's not a monk anymore. He still is a monk, That's my example, right? A monk is supposed to keep all the vows pure, but might break some, but still he's a monk. We cannot say you are not a monk, So in the same way, in the general sense, Madhyamikin should not accept the 4 types of production, but if somebody accepts one of them, still he could be or she could be a Madhyamikin, So I guess he's probably telling her, hey, I could still be Madhyamikin, although I accept production from others, So that's the issue. So we finish, I guess, in English you have a chapter wise. I don't think in the Tibetan we do. So that was chapter 20. We completed it on page 266. So the next one is labeled chapter 21, I suppose. The big caption is, our critique of Saivatantrika does not hurt our own arguments. Okay, so that is where we will pick up. So Geshe wants to stop there today, and so if you have any questions or clarifications we need to make, sure, please go ahead. Please use the traveling mic somewhere here. Yeah, any next to you.
I have a question about production. What's the difference between production from others and
from self?
No, like cause and effect.
Oh, without causes, production without causes.
No, I mean, so you said that there's no production from others, right?
Production from...
So what is production from others?
So 4 types of production are, let me repeat, if I got it wrong, right? Then you can ask the question. Production from self, Dale Kieva in Tibetan, I know you're learning Tibetan. Production from others, Shen Le Kieva. Okay. Production from both self and others, that is both, and production, without causes, right? So now you're asking is what the difference between production from others and...
So what is production from others? I mean, I guess I thought production from others could be like...
But from other causes, conditions.
The same as a cause and effect.
Oh, okay.
Something happens and then that creates...
Okay, sure. Okay.
So that's why I'm confused.
Oh, sure. Okay, got it. That again, did work again. Geshe, got your work again. Shen like you say, sure, work again. Shen like you say, the Tondadi can just station and goes over. Koran sama Shen like you say, deep and not good again, Shen Girwa, Chebal ten Kieva, the Shinji something to work again. Sitting on the Namju, Junde Tendish, do go or work again. Says that Shinji did any the Karikaba, Shinji says, or what?
Shinji said that is it. Rangi, Junde, Rangi, Tadi. Shin any Gyeltsen, 현재
할래.
다 랑이 자세히 가르스는 근데 도미 축도 좋아 랑이 샤고로
Lari. Yeah, Geshe said, you can understand where, a clarification need to offer there. Production from others does not simply mean that something is produced by a cluster of causes and conditions which are other than that something, whatever, right? That's not what it is. What this means is that the assumption here is that things exist in and of themselves, intrinsically, so which means even if you assert cause and effect relationship, a cause exists intrinsically on its own, and the effect or the result exists intrinsically on its own. So under that condition, if you say a result is produced from such cause, that's a production from others. Okay, so then you said, how can it be? Because intrinsic reality means, independent existence, right? Being able to stand on your own feet kind of thing, right? I don't need anybody, I don't care anybody, but he didn't say that, but we just have to make it really loud, right? I can do everything myself, so I don't need all of you kind of thing. Well, if that's the case, then how can we establish a cause and effect relationship among things, right? Because each of them exists independent in and of itself. So why you need the other, right? That's what we mean. Production from others means intrinsically existing others, other phenomena causes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Good.
what did that Eugene Jidizan Eugene Joe Penny Theodore Theodore Maro
The issue is in conventional sense when we talk about cause-effect relationship, right? They're intimately related to each other, and without a cause, a result cannot happen, right? Effect. So that shows the interdependent nature of things, isn't it? If things are of interdependent nature, then they cannot be independent, So that whole notion of intrinsicness, falls apart. Yeah. Yes, Jim. Yeah.
Okay, you said that Chandrakirti says that the only unmistaken perception is of emptiness.
Yes.
Now, what about for a Buddha who is simultaneously seeing emptiness and conventional reality?
Right.
You wouldn't say that his perception of conventional reality is mistaken, would you?
Okay, sure. Tataki can canine the dear wagon on the tree shed and Madhubi Sundukala. Pandan Dawatawaki Shevalaya, the Madhubi Sheving the Tony Mishiamarwage. Tatoni, you get the Madhubi Shaman Shambaka Trisha Elva. Then they in by Nasarwage. And a Sanje gate that Dini Chichatobaki Sheba Yorwage. Kunja Temba Wage. Chazakunja Tobe and the Sheba de and Trisha Chada Yorvasa. Taco the Sanje Dini Chichatobaki Yorwage. Dini Chada the Tandam Temba, Tony Toba, the Trisha man, the Kunja Toba Chacharwage. The Trisha Chada, Tony Togo. Tony Togo much was that Kunja Totter, so or okay.
Ale Kaje Madu Niva in a Takaje Tono them were Chagum, Dodo to Valley.
Much discuss again. Maribi Sheba in a Tony to be Sheba, we kept me discuss again. And a Sanje, Tini Chicha to be Sheba, the Kunja Togo again. Says Kunja Togo, Cotricia Chada, or wrestle.
That Sanje, the new Casa. Renzo meva nguzun chichija sebo sigurwa. Sida ko deshior da deshior da soji shiba dependa chita to bi che chinyi ro bi che dosa ni shawora. Chana khari khai khodi madu re da se de khar to mo se no ede deshior da kunzo she do de in sanje chebe ni go da ni sanje sho madu ro asti madu shi bi do re do sigurwa.
Oh, did it? I mean, I'm Trisha Chegamar, or Sanje Sheba there. Sanje Sheba then Kunjo Tobe Chan Trisha Chegamar,
but the Trisha said that you shan't the Shamarda. Look, Korong shan't shower, Trisha.
Then the temple to now with Chan, the
Sanje Chile, Sanje the in the tree of Shadra, the Usain Sando, you call Sanje Donner, but so the Ranjang on the Sanje in the Chipatera. The Usain Shan and Madru door. Or said that Madru doesn't you Madru, she was there. Don't you know about the Giamata? That's Sanje the Namji the Kunzo and the tree dog revis, Kunzo or what? Said that Kunzo Tobo in the tree be chaps 페이지 나고지 말해.
no so
그래서
no le
지나다 다도 산지게 지니바 셈베네 가르사 시다 셈베 시티게 군좀 쉬지고 어디디요. 마주에 이동이 쓰게 나면나 마주에 이동이 sendo고 말해.
치타오드 베기 이셰디기 군적 최도고에 대 마리베시베 니도 인슬 말 고고라 카가자로 다 친예바 또바디기 군적 동이 도고요데 양디
도래
다 되기 마시 테마 두번 나만한테 랍세는 게 딱다 지금 말고 산절 지난 거 말고
제 사게 되노 요 말아 제신도 되고
Geshe says you know the where you know we talk about I mean in this debate context, right, mistaken and unmistaken, right? According to Chandagirti, except for the perception of emptiness as it is, right, the other perceptions are mistaken, the conventional phenomena, because conventional phenomena appear to them as they truly existent, intrinsic existent, but they don't exist that way, right? Mistaken from that point of view, right, from objective appearance point of view. But in the case of an enlightened being Buddha, where you give the example of how Buddha's wisdom simultaneously perceives both truths, right, conventional ultimate truth, you know, we cannot apply the same notion because for Buddha's wisdom, things don't appear as intrinsically existent, you know. Buddha's wisdom sees things as they are. Of course, we can look at from two different aspects. From the aspect of seeing the ultimate reality as it is, we label that as ultimate wisdom. From the aspect where it sees conventional diversity, we call it conventional wisdom. But in reality, each aspect of the Buddha's enlightenment, it sees everything else at all, right? That we sees emptiness also sees conventional reality. That we sees conventional reality also sees emptiness. At the Buddha's level, right, that wisdom, you know, we cannot talk about as mistaken because things don't appear to it as being truly existent or intrinsic existence, just like ours. So here, when we talk difference about mistaken and unmistaken perception is relating to us as ordinary beings, okay? So that if we, the only thing that can be unmistaken according to Chandagirti for us ordinary beings is if we have a wisdom that sees emptiness as it is. The rest of our perceptions about conventional phenomena are mistaken because things appear in one way and they exist in another way. Just that, you know. Yeah.
So is it possible to have a direct
Yeah.
non-conceptual perception
Yes.
of a conventional object?
Say it again, direct.
A direct non-conceptual perception of some conventionality.
Yes. From Buddha.
No, or is it possible meditatively to directly perceive non-conceptually conventional
for us, you
conventional
mean?
object? Yeah.
Okay, ale. Nganzo disi ko lagi nganzo bena da nganzo diu tama basa ko wage. Ki da kon ditu mo bena kom ja bena ka wage. Chue kan rong ba chi ane ngusum do wage. Nganzo ngusum do to tu ko wes ko wage. Kom ja chue de ko kom ja ka chi do wage. Da di to ko cha rong wage. Kom jam ne nganzo do se wage kom ki nang da tingi je nyam ba sa sa jong wage. Na ya nganzo 큐 페바신 입에 차는 최 강양으로 막 가리는 데로 와게디 무슨도 다 가져 있는 데로 와게 똥매도 슬라고 와게 안 젠자도 또 투그래 말했어. 근데
그래 검적도잖아. 그게 땡이도 터졌잖아. 무슨인 거야, 요 말. 그거
이 용초고를 받아.
또 봐 용초고.
맞아. 무슨 용초고를 봤어.
무슨 나다 무슨 되잖아. 야 될야 다나야 될 세이지 해야 돼요. 다음다 되도 무슨 세마세야 될 땡큐 무슨 세말이야. 얘네 또봐 많이고 말아. 또봐 무슨 세마 시작이라.
라로 무슨
분지 또봐다 들어간 거 분바도 또 분방 무슨 뒤지서 무슨 시작이라.
알아는 무슨 분지 또봐.
무슨 세대다 마주 시바고 말에 되고 마주 시바고 말에.
무슨
동무야고 말에.
취시에다 또봐 있어.
또봐요 무슨 뭐래.
근데치도 보나 다 땡큐 버거 와게. 분바 가사게 믹셰게 무슨도 또봐다 와게. 안에 또배기 분바 무슨도 또봐니로 와게. 개발 주기로다. 네가 무슨 상관이네. 이쪽으로 보다.
이좀 다 이주에서는 양한서 지단서 이주에서도
마도 또봐. 분바도 무슨 세마다스.
분바도
분바 또 무슨 믹셰니로 하게. 무슨 입에 차라. 무슨 세마 입에 차라 찍바로 와. 저 똑다 찍바 잡으러.
무슨 세마에 분바는 무슨 세마에 찍바.
인당 인데스 라빈나. 이미 좀
무슨 세대 데스고로 간제 딸 마덴발 아니 비게 세면도가 된지 세마들 무슨 세마서.
범죄 또고 분박에 달마디 무슨 또 됐어.
어디도 그러. 그때 그 분심이 정도엔 다가나 보면 또 되라. 그러면 게시에 보면 또 가야 돼요. 무슨 말은.
Is this the tricky part? According to Prasangikas, right? When we talk about, we usually translate the direct valid perceptions or the non-conceptual. No, for Prasangikas, the Muslim Sema, direct valid perceptions can also be conceptual. It doesn't have to be non-conceptual for Prasangikas. So that's why we can talk about, for them, we could have a non-conceptual direct valid perception of a vase, but we could also have a conceptual direct valid perception of vase, according to Prasangikas. But Prasangikas, valid cognitions do not have to be what we call Geshe, unmistaken. Unmistaken perceptions, not all of them, could also be valid perceptions. Remember, I think this is now I remember. I think Latmir, right? You helped me to correct one of my the difference between distorted wrong perception and valid perception. I think it relates to that, right?
Well, actually, his question was, are there direct valid perceptions of conventional phenomena? That's all.
Are they direct valid perception? But you talked about the meditative state, something, right?
Well, he added that because he assumed that only meditative
Right.
equipoise you can see.
Right.
But basically, that's the question.
Right. then right. That's
We
what
usually think that the only direct non-conceptual perception is of emptiness, but is it or is it not possible to have a direct non-conceptual perception of the conventional level of something?
Or is it possible, right? Sure.
Or is it necessarily conceptual? If you're perceiving a conventionality, is it necessary? There's necessarily a layer of conceptuality,
No,
or is it?
I think probably what Geshe said answers your question. He said, according to Prasangikas, the direct valid perceptions can be conceptual as well. It does not have to be non-conceptual. According to Prasangikas system.
Okay, but what I'm asking is it possible to have a non-conceptual direct perception of a conventionality?
Right. According to this again, 데로밖에 똥맥이 로하게 군접 붙여로 로하게 무슨 떡과 매버서 어떻게 무슨도 아주 또투버 연구를 해서 아주 다 해봐서 로하게 똥맥이 무슨 사이죠 로하 디 연구를 해서 아주 리얼
근데 저저서 가수 강버서 무슨 또 무슨 또 암조가 무슨 또
Yeah, as ordinary people, yes, we do have a lot of things that direct non-conceptual valid perceptions. The things what we really experience, like the pillar over there or other things, is we have direct non-conceptual perceptions of many things as ordinary people.
Those are sensory perceptions.
네가 상말로 이렇게 왕셰 차도 와서 이식 무슨 가서 또 연습을 와도
이식 무슨 그또 니가 또 그래 또
먼저 더 유폐바이네로 이식 무슨 유쇼
근데 미시 줄이요 조선집에 또 빠지기라
또 빠지기라 또 매기 또 무슨 또 연구 이식
또 매기 무슨 그또 매기 또 안구시 왔지라 봐
그래
다단다 가서 조선집 또왜 피시리
이식 무슨 가서 또 매기 요리 없어
다 이시들이고 이시들이고 또 무슨 요리
똥매 용쇼고 뭐 봐 먼저 기부 폐바 임배차네 똥매기 이식 무슨
이게 치바 똥매 배지다 요 말에
Yeah, for us, at the mental level, right, the non-conceptual valid perception, that seems to be difficult for us. Yeah, sensory, yes. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, sure. Good. Sure.
Text today made a brief mention of the Chitamatran school, and we know that the Prasangic school rejects the Chitamatran philosophy.
Actually, the debate was between Savatantika Madhyamika by Baba Viveka and Chandrakirti as a Prasangika.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not the Chitamatran. We didn't talk about that.
Right.
He might, but today we didn't talk about it.
I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm sure that's another topic for another day, where we could go for additional study to see how the Prasangikans reject the Chitamatran thought or their critique of the Chitamatran philosophy.
Okay, sure. In general sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
in general, so we
Sure,
can.
sure. Koran condition di insero wada tagi ngazu di kalso kora loben lengden che gerwa ke rangju bada ta pande dawa da tenju be di che gerwa ke tenju be ngwe ne ane semjam be gi ta luk so gerwa ke dawa la pa ane yang kalso ngazu ina cheba ro dinde yo be sa ke
Diyor.
di ante condition se gerwa wada ji
Diyor. Da
business son sen mer
Samsung shiba dendro yi kele ngoro ati oma dendro yo moro so yor.
ta temba du be se ge yan tonda di ore wada ro ke tendu sheba machine can di chu samsung bagi kasa yu chu tin ru keleng ma ru
La
alo samalo di bhaja na so so ro chide
가가 뭐고 있는데 다 세서 데버트 쳐고
na ro ba chide ne tin ru
시다 시동메라고 라서
chide me so re ore ngo bin tin ru yes I mean one of the things that becomes an issue for the pasangika which is accepted by the Chita Martins is they do accept that things are truly existent, and Prasangika said, well, there is no such thing as true existence, Of course, Chita Martins don't accept externally existent objects, right? Because all things are in the nature of your perceptions, but they do accept true existence of things, and Prasangika takes issue with that, right? Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Hello.
Yeah. I think it's on.
Hello.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Okay. These two groups, Baba Videnka
Yes.
is other
Chantakriti. Chantakriti.
Chandakriti.
Yes.
Looks, they never agree each other,
Uh-huh.
and the situation is very frustrating.
Uh-huh.
And what they have to do,
Uh-huh.
I think Geshe spoke about that at the ending of today's.
Oh, okay.
But could you please repeat
The problem is not solved, right? It's just kind of hanging there. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
But that, as I say,
Yes.
situation is very stressful,
Yes.
frustrating.
Right.
So I wonder what they have to do.
Okay, sure. I got your point. Koran ki disi gore ke. Ta tiring de chaba de mangso ne nyora shibulan de di ane loben lengden che gerwa ke. Ki duzu di dan rwa ke. Ane loben dawa dawa Koran ni kyun she tünye min dus rwa ke. Nyora rwa pa zu jik jik kelen mu de rwa. Chasa tiring ki sungju di des so so sa kuni ni jik jik kelen mu de bi sen rwa ke. Yokda ma so yalang de rwa ke. Chasa ta di be ngo na ru chi rwa. Ta kuni ni timbo ru chi rwa ke. Khari che gu go re sa ta Koran ni jik jik zang de ke ma le chi rwa ke. Jik le di me jik le di me la rwa ke. Nyora Koran la ma shu ki ke de ga ma de le ya tabla me de ga ru chi rwa ke.
다 디스고 다 디체다로 저러 다 딩데 코라 시야시나 야 다타와도 그돈 딩데 코라 게빈시 뭐도 그 팜이 지금 말와
Mula rwa.
다타와 다 뭐니 뭐니 저 다타와시나 또 최저 딩데 시고디 리파 뭐니 저자 된 파요나 엔텐디 다 시온데 장 엔다 tenjuwa denpa tabi shawwa shawwa da muvli zi ribelan rogwa
Lore.
o timur da tere su mune singsa kyuja singsa yale da de oma gita da choje teno sia da teno sia di 생이 고발라 승자시야 겨라
Lore.
다 데드 카에 왔다 고발 잡아가 베리글 차디 이기다라
Lore.
저 오면을 리기다는 그 로추스 가면 오면 리고
Lore.
디디다는 욕다 여라
Lore.
저 데리다 데 리글 마장 데데 욕다 이거 가리 신나다
The Marasam did something to again. The Panda Dawa, Korani, Tinder of scholars, Tapani San Modun Rovake. The Timber is a timber soya or Sigazoranize.
tumba다 this was that 가르치는 모네라지는 다와다와 링데지 저는 왜 대바 눈주레 샤스 고분니도 레문두서 다와다 대바리와로
In a Taliban,
로원 링데지 고분니도 수 태유 다와리아 또야기 탑시시고라 간다 어디로 와 이런 거 다가서 쭉쭉 그 대대고 더 나가이 말와 다들 뒤에도 다와 처먹을 레어서는 욕다 먹어서 다 리로 처먹으려고 그래서 뒤에 욕다도
in a Taji Gazo again, then upon this Koran did something to again. Loben Langdensi, Tap, as a Kurami Loben Shumber she was some you may have the daughter, but she was trying to come to Shula, Yataki Kellen to a Chagi and knitting mirror, Talagimento. The men you got on your day now, sweet again.
did it that you then daughter then the Sungdi page Lindeji 다 되는 마시도 뭐 다 링데지 다타 바강가 루트 고로 인세 아치아라 티케는 엔 페지 좀스그마도 해지당 바 림바시는 페지 다타 바 링데지 샵신지 말이
로
샵신지 말이
알레 제요 말와
다타 바 주마라
슈슈로 제요 말와 호레
그래 다데 시디 뭐 루트 고로 투바스 카리 루트 제슈 말이야 또 거제 디레 뇨다 뭐 여러 왔지마도 응원도요 제로 가게 나셔나 다타바다 링데지 지가 고벌 루트 고로 샤도
뭐로 위는 빼젠 저 버치 볼 스티인데 우선
ngô shagna ya lingde je de ya che kuse te le she da ta ba me le she de pe lingde je da ta ba pe je she zum pe je yu ma
뭐 다이네 더 쩨바든 가지고 건배나지 이렇게 다가란도 스타를 샤샤지마도 지가 다 디베 팀버스 SK요 말와 지도 고 따와거를 주고
da shunu shunda sha tang ba sanje jang ge ne ten jo tu mo man de lingde je de du mo de jong jo ro ba
어 될 다와
da lingde je jong ju de dan de sanje jang ge ngo lian ma ja zang in ti ju ma da ta ba je jong de ja ka jong san xie ro ba 어디가 누구 거를 왜 피도하시는 종주를 모두 지금 있는 다와도 링데지대가 갑대로 이제 드레스에 수도야 뭐로.
So Geshe understands, that your frustrations and where it looks like there is a conflict, there's no resolution in the, to this. But how you say? What Geshe wants to say is, of course, even this topic, the things we are discussing, even in the monastic universities, usually the monks who have studied like many years, right? They all have learned the reasoning, metaphysics, really well. Still, they have all this debate. They couldn't resolve it, But underlying all this debate, what it is like, that the Prasangika's presentation on realities is taken as the final kind of standpoint interpretations, isn't it? So because, how should I say, Baba Viveka, they're great masters, the great thinker. So Chandakiri is showing you, based upon reasons, kind of facts and evidence, I'm showing you that what you assume is something is wrong there, contradiction, isn't it? So he's just trying to point out. He's not imposing anything on them, right? They're not debating for the sake of debate because they have nothing else to do. So the assumption is that down the line, if you really look everything based upon reasoning, we should be able to come to the same viewpoint as Prasangikas ultimately. That's the assumption. Of course, the debate has not been resolved, and people have different viewpoints. Some even claim that both Baba Viveka and Chandakiri were the direct disciples of Nagarjuna. But Geshe thinks possibly that couldn't be because Chandakiri came much, much later time. So Baba Viveka and Chandakiri really did not meet. They're not of the same generation or the era. But this whole debate, the very complex one that we kind of try to sort of touch the surface here, is where the monks really studied for 10 years and then they still debate about this, is a great Indian master called Buddhapalita, right? He wrote his treatise work. And then Baba Viveka comes and he takes issue with it, right? He said, well, there's something here that's not working, right? And of course, Buddhapalita did not answer all the responses to that. Then Chandakiri comes after Baba Viveka. He said, you know what, you got it wrong. Buddhapalita was right from the beginning. So Chandakiri comes in defense of Buddhapalita. This is how all these different philosophical standpoints and arguments have come about. Okay. So, yeah. Don't get frustrated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't get frustrated.
Yeah, thank you. One more question and then probably, yes, let me, yeah.
What time are we supposed to finish?
What?
What time are we supposed to
I don't know. I'm fine anytime, but unless something's happening, yeah. Yeah. So, did you hear it?
But the time,
남주 추적 어디서 사고 있어? Yeah, let's take whatever your question takes, say yeah. No, it's okay. No, it's fine. Not really. Sometimes we rush. We tell you we have to rush, but I don't think Geshe is in rush or I'm in rush. Okay, yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I've never paid attention to this. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, let's do one more. Using my translator power here. I have no power, but
All right. Well, it's about basically the whole text up to now deals, if I understand correctly, with the object of negation.
Yes.
So Kappa has to explain what the object, what is negated
Right.
by reasoning.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bhava Viveka presents the object, conceives it too narrowly because he's of a lower school. Okay. Now, but and it seems to me that the reasoning is because he believes that valid direct cognition, which establish conventional phenomena, are unmistaken. That's what Baba. Now, how does that prove that he conceived the object of negation too narrowly?
Okay, how can we that prove?
Because it's both this agreement is only about conventional phenomena, and conventional phenomena are not an object of negation anyway. You understand what I'm?
Thank you. Kuna condition dirige da diring anzo di kasorda chaba da masorwage dige tar tu de kala ta anzo gagjak munjin lorwage tu de besorwage chide kala da tanda lomen lengden je gi gagjak munjin di ta gagjak munjin kasorda anzo ro chimenar ke correct labda chena neru sa ta kyapchung ar sorwage je tane ane ta disun gorwa lomen lengden je gi an kunzo be chö dige dirwage kasata to bagi musum sorwage dige di ta majubi sheba yin sorwage kunzo de yes majubi sheba lawage so majubi sheba yin se digi rwage tanda di lomen lengden chi gi gakja duju sorwage gakja duju sorwa gakja duju di kandes dubyung gore sage pen kunzo de yes chö tan rwage and kunzo de yu da dubi sheba di ya majubi sheba yin la rwage 마주베 샤바 인세 디기 코랑 다미 로베 가사 랭덴세 디주기 각자 저러와게 각자데 컨디션 두빈 거래서
안데 데스고 다 링데 손도 마주 시베 니세 데스고라 유코는 다 런시 주바 유된도 거기 주바 셔거라
나래
유 주바 제다 태교다 런시 주바 세야 되라
나래
어디다 유기든 여스고라
나로방
그때 유기든 여번나시 세메 또리 노노라요 말이지
마스코 예만 스타데르
세르와 다 태교스나 어디 유런시 요마데 런시 주바 나데 추시래서 뭐데 유코런시 요 말이지
나래
다 린데지에서 데 런시 요데스고라
나래 다 코란 사마디 텐저와게 konzoni ge zaba de ge kunzab ge che ro ba ge da bana da kaza dir ba ge da solo so ba ba ge tanye de yu ane di yu be ge sema da ka song song sema di ane ma tu be she ba yin sla ba ge de le zhe da ma do ji ge da dong ni to la kun ni ga lu de ba tin be so ba ge zhe me de ge so ba di le sto de ge ba ge
다 돈이 다 돈이 될 되죠 다
다 돈이 무슨 더 배셔 봐디 권한이 가로 그다 게 마주 배셔 봐 이미 시샤지 게 something so 와 다이나 군저 부처디 나와라 배 세비나 고 취세 차더로 와 알로베 랭데 저도 마주 배셔 차더로 와 나와라 배 델레 야 게도 슬라빈 거로 와 어디 딘데로
다 거사 데려와 마주 시와세 다 데려야 무슨 있는 노일 마주 와시 똑바이네 주일 마주 와시도
딘이 가로 되 저래
어디다 디스 링데지에서
알로
그 마디스야 저러
알로
무슨 있는 노일 마주 거리스 그 지도 켈랭거와
거래
똑바이는 시위는 마주 거리스
노소
다 마주야 디 카가샤 마주 시베니 있어야지 그 똑바 좀 샤당 카가 되면 되지 저거래
알로 군이 이가로 그다 간제 겐디 가사 마주 배셔 고된 거라 가가 차
어때 고래
다 반대 다외기
맞아 다시도 다 근데 가서 주리스데 마주 시바들 요 말려 다 수주 마주 겨
okay, so Geshe says, according to Baba Viveka, right, things appear to exist out there, kind of, intrinsically. And not only they appear to our perception that, but that's how it is, So that perception has to be unmistaken, he said, right? So things exist conventionally. They appear to exist intrinsically, but that's correct. Nothing wrong with it, That's how that unmistakenness, right? Whereas Chandrakirti says, what? We agree, things appear to us that way, but they don't exist that way. That's the issue, right, between them. But also their notion of what makes it unmistaken seems to have a difference too. According to Baba Viveka, in the case of direct valid perceptions, unmistakenness has to be with regard to the appearing objects, nangyu. Things appear, right? That's how it is. With regard to the inferential valid cognitions, they have to be unmistaken with regard to what is called the referent object. But Chandrakirti might have, said, all things appear to us ordinary being as intrinsically existent, but they don't exist that way. So therefore, all our perceptions are mistaken, except that if we realize emptiness, that's the only unmistaken thing, right? So that's the difference. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Baba Viveka says that phenomena exist intrinsically only conventionally, but not ultimately.
Right.
I mean, isn't that the same as basically as what Chandrakirti is saying, more or less, kind of?
Okay.
I mean, phenomena appear, according to Chandrakirti, appear to
Yes,
exist
right.
intrinsically.
So
phenomena.
you're saying is the Baba Vivek says that things appear intrinsically, conventionally. That's how conventionally they exist intrinsically,
Yes.
but ultimately not intrinsically. That's
Exactly. I've read somewhere, and no, it's not here, but
Right.
that according to him, they don't exist ultimately intrinsically.
Right.
Ultimately,
Okay. No, that's good addition. Yeah, to this. Kokorang this some again. Tanda karso ko loben lengden che giro waken. A chötam je pike rangwen to ban nang wata to yoris la wake. Then the USA the and kunzob gi wang the tan ro wake. Kunzob to rangwen to ban na shin to rangwen to yoris ro wake. Then tambe wang to yo maris sunga maris. Ni la ge yebena ani lomen dawa dawa the korani she chigra maris. Then tambe wo yo mat dawa dawa sunga ro.
돈 더버 매워대 지와래요. 근데 런지 버스는 런지 저와다 돈 더버 저와니 카가 치고라. 다 나저외대 돈 더버 저와다 런지 저와 대버 저 강가 초지 소해로. 어디 살도.
Ale kaza lengden chegi den tambar droba sayedi kalu kogolge.
돈 더버 저와지 대버 저와 지와해고 저. 런지 저와야데 딜샤고 말이.
Lo.
런지 저와야 런지 저와야데.
Rangwen droba sayedi.
런고 저와야 런지 저와 런지 저 디솜디 지과와.
Ole.
지와해고.
자, 이 고den디 가르쳐도 오다.
다 강제 저한테 강다지 맞아 딱동지 타니다 딱동세 니야 위해서는 더다 유익이 땡디 봐 또배다가 지고 뭐해 봐 유등디 지기 위해서는 랑문 줘봐서 그러
그래. 다디 된 담바 dro바래 쓰고서.
맞지 때마다 랑시 줘봐 랑문 줘봐 랑생이 줘봐
다된 담바
또
dro바.
줘봐지도 넣으면 저 유튜브에서 뛰어 말다 강자들이 되라 돈 담바 줘서
된 담바 dro바 메서다.
돈 담바 줘 담바 줘 어디에 되어 말아
그래. 또 나와라 걸 니가 지고 사대로.
네.
Okay. I think this might help. So he said. So according to Baba Viveka, there is a distinction between intrinsic existence and ultimate existence. They are not one and the same thing. According to Chandrakirti, they're same, right? If something exists intrinsically, it exists ultimately. But Baba Viveka, no. Okay. So Baba Viveka would say things appear to us as intrinsically existent. That's how it is. So our perception is unmistaken. But they don't exist ultimately, according to Baba Viveka. Why? Because ultimate existence implies that things should be able to exist, right, on its own without depending upon subjectivity at all. Then they said there isn't such a thing because subjectivity is involved. So Baba Viveka says that things are findable. Something is there. You do ultimate analysis. You find something to pinpoint, but that something cannot exist, completely on its own without some subjectivity, So it's just like a little bit here, right? That's the difference. So Chandrakirti is like, no. So, yeah, thank you. All right, that's great, I think. See, now we resolved. Don't get frustrated. We resolved that. Okay, so we'll stop there for Happy Father's Day. I don't want the fathers to be too hungry on this day. The day shall again. We'll do the dedication prayers. Kange lo de timnyen tinde nyinda namda rabse jinyen dungun jishin si che nye to ga le kanda sebe zunra mare mendon dungne yesebe rozo kun la buje da yan la zhe yang den so zhu da xie zhuo nyu mo le je zha zhuo zhe zhe jin mare men se dungne nyu wo jinye zhen zhe ra zhe den ne da jin sa ju ta se Yönden lenso Geshe tuyu ku chuja chuda dalu men jambe yangla de omara badana de Omara banza na de zenden chöye kenra wese ye dalu timu minba rabse ga da den jue xiong lu do lo zhe bo be na zhe do shi lo zhe jia zhi yu zhong bia ga ji feng yue ju do mian ba xin dian ba zin la wang do yi che be zhang nian shu gun que la so wang. Page 21. Obeisance to my Guru and protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arabhaza Nadi. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate beings, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lord Sang Tenzin Wangda, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tự nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tin ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thủ thắng, cùng đại bi ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tựa từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử, tiếng rồng vang ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp báu, gồm trí tuệ ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn. Ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi, con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, ban pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải. Như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đàn xanh nơi trí thù thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lốp Sang Tenzin Quang Đắc, xin cung kính trì niệm.
Kye Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Kong Ye Kong Pe Wa Yo Sa Ji Be Ji Ju Shi Me Do Zhang Ri Ra Lin Xi Nin De Yen Ba San Ye Xin Du Me De Wi Wa Yin Zhou Wen Nan Da Xue Ba Yu Kang Ri Ra Bi Guo Bi Xin Gang De Pen Dang De Wa Ma Lu Zhong Wei Ne Qian Ri Si Wang Din Jin Ya Zhou Yi Xia Bei Si Dian Ba Den Yun Ji Yi Dang Gu Ru Ra Na Man De La Gang Ni Yan Da Ya Me
We want to congratulate our Dr. Tenzin Dojila
Oh.
for being re-elected as a Commission on International Religious Freedom, on top of it elected as a chairman of a U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. So we want to congratulate and then benefit all the sentient beings.
Thank you very much. Everybody's giving me a surprise, so DC gave me the chairs by surprise, and now here's another surprise. Any more surprise? Wow. GSTDL went out of his way to buy a cake too. So. Trying to find the unfindable. It's interesting. This game.